Welcome to the world of survival horror. Welcome to Resident Evil. Yes, I'm going to be talking about Resident Evil today. Resident Evil is my favorite video game franchise because I love horror. I love the suspense and I love the goofy story, crazy story. And I've collected just about every single Resident Evil game that is worth owning. And I'm just missing one, but we'll talk about that later. But I have every single game that's worth playing, and I'm gonna go through each one, do a little review, like overview of the game and its impact, and recommending what to play and what not to play. So let's start from the beginning. The original, from March 1996, Resident Evil. We have the director's cut here. I don't have the original release, but we still have Resident Evil, and wow, what a game changer. Back in the 90s, we didn't have horror games like this, and like going to the three-dimensional, like 3D, it really changed everything and like allowed developers to expand their horizons in terms of gameplay. And Shinji Mikami, the creator of Resident Evil, he wanted to do that. Originally, a guy by the name of Tokuro Fujiwara, he made a lot of Capcom's earlier arcade games like Ghouls and Goblins, Commando, Bionic Commando, and all that. He was originally going to make the game because he originally made the game Sweet Home. It was made on the Famicom, the NES in Japan, and back in 1989, and it was like one of the first horror games, survival horror games. It was originally an RPG, and he made that. And Shinji Mikami, he really enjoyed that. He wanted to make a game in 3D. So Fujiwara, he told him to make it similar to that, and Shinji Mikami, he made this. Now this is such a groundbreaking game because there was nothing really like that back then. Alone in the Dark it was made in '92, and it had fixed camera angles like they have in Resident Evil, and it was pretty alright for the time, but this really defined what survival horror is. Survival horror is defined by item management, puzzle solving, limited resources. Instead of actually fighting your the monsters, zombies, you can run away, and a lot of backtracking. So that's what I love about Resident Evil, and that's what I love about the first game. I've actually there's actually two people you can play: Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield. I've only actually really played with Jill because she's one of my favorite characters, and I still need to play Chris Redfield's version, but still great. Oh man, it's not that long. It's like 6 to 7, 8 hours long. But definitely try to get your hands on a copy of this. But don't get this version because it has different music from the original. It was actually made. The music was actually composed by actually deaf person, and it later was revealed that he had somebody else ghostwrite his songs. It's crazy. Don't get this version. You can get this version if you have to. It's on the PSN, on the PS3. They also released it on the Sega Saturn. This is the original. It has original music in it. Released in '97. But I think that the best version of the original Resident Evil is Resident Evil Deadly Silence. It's not going to focus, but Deadly Silence on the DS. This game, I recently beat it, and it's great because you can skip the load times, the door transitions. There's no load times. There's quick turns, a little quality of life like improvements to the original Resident Evil, and it has original soundtrack, and it also has like extra modes, like a rebirth mode where you can do first person swiping, and it's great. Extra costumes. if you're gonna play the original Resident Evil, play Deadly Silence. It's getting up there in price, so look for it on the DS. Get it. Now, Capcom wasn't expecting much from the original Resident Evil, but it was a huge success for Capcom. So they decided to rush into a sequel, and actually, I think it was a month afterwards. So we have the very, very popular Resident Evil 2. Now, the original game took place in just a mansion, in the hills of Raccoon City. Now, this one takes place in the city, Raccoon City, and you play as Leon Kennedy, a rookie, first day on the job, cop, and Claire Redfield, the brother of the original protagonist from the first one, Chris Redfield. And this one was directed by Hideki Kamiya. He's known for his action games, Devil May Cry, Okami, Bayonetta. He directed this, and him and Shinji Mikami, they have like a dispute on like what the direction was for this game. So it took 2 years to release when it was originally supposed to release, like in '97. But this originally released in January 1998, and it like sold like crazy. People loved it, critically acclaimed. It was more action focused. They could put more zombies on the screen. It mostly took place in the Raccoon City Police Department. So iconic, the city and the police department. And I love this game so much. I think I like the first one a little bit more, just because I like the setting of the mansion. It's more spooky to me. And I enjoy the terrible voice acting. Listen to the voice acting in the original one. It's comedy gold. But this one has a little bit more improved voice acting. But you cannot go wrong with this. This is still great to play, so definitely play this. They released it originally on the PS2, and crazily they released this on the Nintendo 64. This is the largest Nintendo 64 cart. It has so much memory packed in. It's insane. This had a whole bunch of cutscenes in it, and like you didn't really see FMV cutscenes, full motion video on the Nintendo 64, but they put this all in. They had extra features, and it's crazy. Like engineering they did for this. I forgot who did this. It was some company, I forgot. It's Angel something. But either way you can do, like, just get this, like, play in the PlayStation original, the N64. They also have it on the GameCube and the Dreamcast. The GameCube version is hard to get hands on. Dreamcast is expensive too, so can't go wrong with either of these. Play it, it's great. Also, it had 2 campaigns just like the original. But it was different, very different from like each one, and it expanded like the gameplay. And they had different weapons, and it was really cool. So Resident Evil 2, great game, play it. Next, after that, the huge success of Resident Evil 2, they quickly made put a reduction, like, man, we gotta milk this. Make some more Resident Evil. So they put like 4 games in production. Originally, the third game was supposed to be just a side spin-off game, but now they got Resident Evil 3 as the main series, which is really a spin-off because it's a shorter game. It stars Jill Valentine, from the original. She's trying to get out of the city. But, some guy, you might have heard of him. He doesn't really like that. His favorite word is stars. Nemesis, yeah. This is like the big thing with this game. This dude, he chases you throughout the whole entire freaking game. And it's anxiety inducing. It was innovative for its time, and it's like one of the biggest things this game contributed to the franchise and gaming in general. It came out in September '99, so just 1 year after Resident Evil 2, and it sold well. It was received well, and the thing with this one, the action was there's more action packed in this one. You can create your ammo. You had the quick turn, where you can just do 180 quick turn, which really improved the gameplay. This is not one of my favorites. I enjoy this a lot, but I enjoy the first two more. It just seemed more like, for story, it felt like more important. This one just did feel like a spinoff. But you gotta love Jill, her tank tube top, trying to escape from Nemesis. But he's like a icon of gaming now. So definitely play this. This is the weakest of the trilogy on the PS1, in my opinion. But you can play this version. I also have this version. The GameCube version is pretty expensive. Like, GameCube games is getting crazy expensive. But this is a good version. It has, again, there's a Dreamcast version that you can play. It's good. And we'll talk about the remake later. But definitely play Resident Evil 3. Now we enter the 2000s. First, I don't even want to talk about it, but yeah, this is the first true spin-off of Resident Evil. We have Resident Evil Survivor. Oh boy. Yeah, this has nothing to do with the main franchise. This is what you call a light gun game. In the Japan, this is a first person shooter light gun. So, like, House of the Dead, if you ever did play that in the arcades, like yeah, I'll show you too later. The House of the Dead games are similar to this, like, first person shooter. You should point the gun at the screen, boom boom. But it was made like that in Japan. But this was made around the Columbine shooting incident, and so for the North America release, they took it out. So you just control it with the controller, which makes it terrible. And this game is only like 2 hours long, and the story is terrible. Skip it. It's like $50 now too. Skip it. I didn't pay that. Skip it. This is probably the worst Resident Evil game, besides one that I might talk about later, but this is definitely the worst. Skip it. Did you hear me? Skip it. Okay, so we got that out the way. Let's talk about a really good one. Kind of controversial, because people say this is actually the third game. This came out in February 2000 for the Dreamcast exclusively. We have Resident Evil Code Veronica. Sorry for this sticker. Now, this came out, and people said, like, oh, this is the real Resident Evil 3. This was always intended to come out on the Dreamcast, because originally Resident Evil 2 was supposed to come out on the Sega Saturn, but they couldn't do it. So they told Sega, like, we'll make a Resident Evil for your next system, the Dreamcast. And this is a good Resident Evil. It still keeps the same fixed camera, third person, tank controls of the original 3. And you play as Claire Redfield, and also some parts her brother Chris. And you also encounter Steve, but we're not gonna talk about him. He's annoying. This is not one of my favorites in the series. It just didn't do it for me like the other ones. It's just not that creepy atmosphere. It's just like a little bit off to me, and the characters are just some of them are just so dumb and just like ridiculous, not in a good way. It's hard to explain, but it's still a really good game. And it's a cool setting. It's like you start in a prison, you get captured, and you go from there. You actually escape. Spoilers, I guess, but you actually escape, and you go to I think it's like Antarctica. It's crazy. But this is a crazy game, and this has my oh well, I forgot this is not the right case. This has my favorite save theme music. Look it up. The music in Resident Evil is great, and especially the save themes. But definitely pick this up if you can't get it on the Dreamcast. I mean, it's not that expensive. You can get the updated version on the PlayStation 2. Resident Evil Code Veronica. This just has like extra features, like extra scenes with Wesker. You know, Wesker's in it. He's back. And this is a cool version. So either way, you can play. Get it. Uh, yeah, it's not one of my favorites. It's more in the middle for me. Next, we're gonna talk about one of my favorites in the Resident Evil franchise. Came out March 2002. The remake of the original Resident Evil. Yes, Shinji Mikami comes back and creates the remake for Resident Evil, and it's so freaking great. Oh, so much was improved. The voice acting, the story was improved. The visuals is crazy. The puzzles, like the original game takes place in the mansion, like I said, but they added extra rooms, so like even veterans of the franchise, they have a sense of like, oh, this seems similar, but it kind of throws you off. Like some rooms is different, and it adds extra layers to it, and it adds an extra side story to it. Lisa Trevor's which is so tragic and like one of like the darkest stories told in the Resident Evil franchises, and it's well done and it's integrated into the story beautifully. And the oh man, the cutscenes, like the whole entire game's atmosphere is unmatched by many games, and especially in the franchise. And it's super scary. And also they added one of the craziest enemies. It's the there's an enemy where you can where like you have to burn certain like zombies in the game. Like if you kill them and you don't decapitate them, they come back to life, and they come back like crazier than ever, and they run after you. Like it's hard to kill them, so like it's more strategy involved in this game, and oh, it's so great. So definitely play this game. If you're looking for a true survival horror experience, one of the best, play the remake. You can get it on the GameCube, which is still great. Also, you can get it on the Wii. They released it on there, and also they did an HD remake. But in the same year, they released something similar to Resident Evil remake. They released Resident Evil Zero in November of 2002. This was very unique because this was actually a prequel to the original Resident Evil. This Rebecca Chambers, she's in the first one, but you don't play as her. She's like the side character for Chris's story. But in this, you play as her, and you play as Billy Colin. He's like a escape convict, and she's like, so it's like they team up because like they go on the train, and it's like derails, and in this game like there's leeches involved, like that's like the main like enemy, and it tells like the origins of like the T virus and all that, which is cool. The stories in this is cool, and like there's two cool characters. I wish Billy would come back, but I have like some gripes with this game because I'm not really a fan of how they utilize the items in this. Because in all the other games, you had an item box that was connected. So if you say you put your like shotgun ammo into one box, they'll have different ones throughout the games, and it will be connected. So if you go on the one box, the item will be in the other one. In this game, you just have to drop your items, and it will stay there, just on the floor. I'm not the biggest fan of it because it makes it more tedious. You have to run back to a certain area, and it messes up the pacing. And also a unique thing about this, the first time in the series, you can play as two characters, and you can switch back and forth just with a button press. So he can be like Billy could be in the room, and you switch to Rebecca, and she's in the other room, which is cool. And this game is pretty difficult because of that mechanic, but it's still awesome. I'm not the biggest fan of this, like say the Resident Evil remake, but think you should definitely play this. If you play the other ones and you want some more, definitely play this. And it's the prequel to the original, so it's important to the story. I have the Japanese version of it on the GameCube. As you can see, it's called Biohazard in Japan, and this is the GameCube version, which is, if you've never seen a GameCube, the Japanese GameCube case, it's quite smaller than the North America, as you can see, which is pretty cool. This is a cool thing to have. So that's Resident Evil 0. And they have the Resident Evil Origins collections, which comes with Resident Evil 0 and the remake. So if you're gonna play it like this. It's cool. It comes with, I think, yeah, both of them come on one disc. So no manual though. Like, come on. There's gonna be a rant about that soon. Next, in 2003, Capcom decided, oh, let's go back to the old trusty light gun, and they made Resident Evil Dead Aim. Actually, Caveat, they made it. The company Caveat made this game, and this is the last game I needed for like most of the Resident Evil games. I'm missing one, Resident Evil Gaiden, but it's not that good of a game. It's on the Game Boy, and it's super expensive. So, but this is the last game I've gotten, and I haven't gotten into it because I can't get this to work properly on my CRT old school TV. That's the only way you can play it. So, but I've heard it's pretty good. It's much better than Survivor, because it's you can actually use this. But it's a light gun game, and it's cool. It's a side story. If you can find it, play it. You can get your old TV and play it like this. It's kind of hard to do, but it's like a cool little thing, like cool little side project for the Resident Evil franchise. Then we have the first Resident Evil online. We have Resident Evil Outbreak, which came out in late 2003. And then the year later, that's basically an expansion pack and extra levels. We have Resident Evil Outbreak PAL 2. Now, this is heavily multiplayer focused. These games take place during like Resident Evil 2, 3, Raccoon City, when like the original outbreak of the city happens, and then, like some of them like just civilians, like is actually another police officer, and like you group together, try to get out the city, and like you could actually play online. Like online back then wasn't really that big of a deal, like 2003, 2004, but you could play online, and you could still play it online. I've seen streams of it, and I've heard a lot of good things about it. I want to play with other people on this. I haven't really got that much into it, but these are little cool little side projects. I appreciate that. They're trying some different stuff in Resident Evil. But yeah, try to pick this up and see if you want to play. Get some friends and try it out. This one's easier to get, the first one. This one is a little bit more expensive, the Outbreak 2. But that's a cool cover. You see that he's handing him the gun. He's a good teammate. He's about to die. But Resident Evil Outbreak, multiplayer focus. Now, we get to a lot of people's favorites. I mean, I gotta admit, it's one of my favorites. But it completely changed the franchise. And it actually changed gaming in general. We have Resident Evil 4. Came out January 2005. Now, the backstory with this is, originally, this started back early development. This was originally supposed to be more like heavy action, gothic horror, and then originally Okay, basically it turned into Devil May Cry, the original Devil May Cry. Then, they scrapped that, like, no, we can't make that Resident Evil. It's not like Resident Evil at all. So they remade it and they reworked it, and it was more like Resident Evil. They have like ghosts and like apparitions, and like it's like, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. So it took a couple like years to get this out, but it finally came out in 2005, and it's directed by Shinji Mikami, and he said that this is what he originally intended for Resident Evil to be. So this is like his baby, his dream project, and it changed gaming because instead of the fixed cameras of like the original Resident Evils, like people were starting to complain about it. The camera is third person right behind you. So when you aim, it's right behind you, and it was innovative because it gave more control to the player. It made for a better gameplay experience, and it's still intense. Like playing this, it's not as scary. It's more action packed, but it's always tense. Like at 15 years later, and it still gets me every time playing it in the first area, and it's still so much fun. One of my favorite games. And it's a great game. Like Leon Kennedy, like he's super famous. He's always in the best games. But it takes place in a village in Europe, and instead of zombies, it's more people, just regular people being infected by this parasite, and it's controlling them. So it's not really zombies, it's just people infected by a parasite. The first for a series, so this really changed the series. People like hardcore Resident Evil fans that from the past, they really it's decisive. This game is decisive. Because some people love it, like, oh, it's better than the original. Some people hate it for kind of destroying the franchise, but eventually it did get back to like its original form. But we'll talk about that later. But I believe this is one of the best games ever. One of my favorites, and you should definitely play this. Originally came out only on the GameCube, which is bullcrap because it came out on basically every system. The PS2. My preferred way to play now is Resident Evil 4 on the PS4. I mean, it comes with all the science content that came with the PS2 version, all the extra features. So this is my preferred way. Or you can play Resident Evil 4 on the Wii, where you can actually point, which people actually like. Just play it however you need to, but don't play the PS2 version because that's the crappiest. Play the PS4 version, or just play it any way you can, because it's definitely, you cannot be missed. We're going to talk about Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles. Came out 2007. Now, this is a this is a light gun game using the Wii remote, on rails, so you don't move around. Just the camera just shows everything. Just like kind of like Star Fox. You ever played that? Yeah, this retells the story of the original Resident Evil, and also Resident Evil 3, I believe, yeah. And also some side like activities of Albert Wesker, like during the original Resident Evil, which is cool to have. Yeah, this is a cool light gun game that you can play. Nothing serious. Made by the same people that made Dead Aim Caveat, so they did it again. Similar to the House of the Dead games, which is cool. You should definitely pick these up. Overkill's awesome. But yeah, that's the first light gun game for the Wii. But we'll talk about that in a second. Then we got the next mainline Resident Evil. We have Resident Evil 5. This is the gold edition with Jill. Okay, so this is also a very decisive game in the series, because this went full on action, because people loved Resident Evil 4, and that was more action focused, but it still has some like horror elements in it. But this went full on action. This takes place in Africa, and you play primarily as you could play as Chris Redfield and Shiva. Yeah, Shiva just gets the people don't care about Shiva; they just care about Jill in this release. But this one was heavy focus on the co-op, and people really enjoy it. Some people like this is their favorite game because it's so much fun. But for me, I enjoy this game a lot. It's a lot of fun. But man, they really did win to the action focus in this, and it's not scary at all. Like a lot of it takes place during the day. This is basically just a straight up action game. But I enjoy it. I enjoy the story elements, and like the voice acting is actually really good in this. It's cool. It's fun to play with a friend. But it's definitely not a Resident Evil game. Like it didn't really need to be, but it's still really good. I don't think you should pass it up, especially with just like fast paced action games. Definitely give this a try. Also, there was like back in the day, this came out this came out March 9th, 2009, and this is actually the best selling Resident Evil game. There was like talks of racism because Chris Redfield is coming to Africa to kill black people. This is made by Japanese people. And who else are he's gonna kill in Africa? People are just so sensitive. But yeah. This is a very controversial game, but it will get even more controversial with the next game. But definitely pick that up. They have a re-release on the PS4. Just get this version. It has all the stuff from the gold edition. Next, we have another game by Caveat. We have Resident Evil Dark Side Chronicles. Another light gun game. This Chronicles, the second game in Code Veronica, and some of the stuff that leads into Resident Evil 4 with Leon, and I think his name's Krauser. Yeah, Krauser. And yeah, this is like a little bit more improved on. I haven't beaten this. I haven't really played it that much, but it's still good. Give it a try if you find it. A light gun game on the Wii. Oh boy. I got this like one of the last games I had to get for Resident Evil collection. We have Resident Evil focus. Resident Evil Mercenaries 3D. So this is basically the Mercenaries mode. If you ever played that, it's just like a arcade mode for Resident Evil. Like I think it was on Resident Evil 4 or 5. I can't remember. But you just go around defeating the enemies, like mission based. Nothing serious. You can just skip this and just play Mercenaries on like another game. It's like this didn't need to be a standalone game. It's on a 3DS. Definitely a skip for me. I got it for cheap, so that's why I got it. Now we have Resident Evil Revelations. This originally came out on the 3DS. It's like a big game for the 3DS. I think it came out 2011, 2012. Yeah, and I mean this is a big deal because Resident Evil started, like I said, going to more action focused. I mean that's what was selling for them. But this game went back to the more survival horror, like more horror, slower pace, dark atmosphere type game. This stars Jill your Valentine. She stars in this, and it takes place on the boat, and it's like kind of like slime monsters, zombies on this one. I mean it's a cool side story game. It's not one of my favorites. You should definitely play it. It's a fun game. It's not one, like I said, it's not one of my favorites, but you should definitely play it. It's not much to say about this. It did bring back Resident Evil to its like true form, but it still had a little bit of action, and it still had the signature behind the back of Resident Evil 4. So some of the gameplay more spooky, but that's Resident Evil Revelations. Oh man. So 2012 was a big year for Resident Evil because people were hating on Resident Evil because they just went full on action, Hollywood action. It came out early 2012, Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City. And I have the special edition. Yay. A Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City. Yay. But I mean, it's a cool art book. I mean, still book. But in this game, you play as Umbrella operatives in the original Raccoon City incident from Resident Evil 2 and 3. And you're trying to get rid of all the evidence of the T-Virus and Umbrella's involvement in like the development of the T-Virus. Trying to get rid of all of it. And like in this game, you can actually kill Leon, I believe. I haven't really beat it. I mean, I haven't played it that much because it's not that good. People had defended it. You know, some people like it, but this was panned by critics. And people were like, this is like one of the low points of Resident Evil franchise. Because they were just going full action. Like, this, just like, okay, let's milk this franchise. Let's go. Let's get everything out there. And this is like one of the low points. But, I mean, it's alright now. But $60 back in the day, 2012, no. I would say look up gameplay online if you think you might like it. It's a third-person shooter. Straight up, like, cover-based third-person shooter of its time, 2012. Like, if you like other third-person shooters, cover-based, you probably like that. It's made by Slant 6 Games, if that means anything. Next, man, we have a controversial game in this franchise. One of the most, if not the most. We have Resident Evil 6. And this is an anthology edition. Comes with all the previous games, downloadable code. But Resident Evil 6. This was originally supposed to go back to the survival horror roots. You know, actual horror game instead of action-packed games of 5 and 4. But Capcom claimed that survival horror, like real horror, wasn't selling back in 2012 when this released. And yeah, people did not like that. It still sold well when originally released. I got it when originally released in October of 2012. But this had 4 separate campaigns. This show Capcom did not know what to do with the franchise, so they just gave us everything. They gave us action. They gave us Resident Evil 3 with Jake's campaign, basically Resident Evil 3, like some guy that's fake chasing you the whole time. They gave us Leon's campaign, where it was more slower pace, but it was still action packed. They gave us Gears of War. I mean, Chris's campaign, which is the weakest for me. Also, one last campaign they gave us Ada's campaign, which is more like stealth. I guess, like, you know, low key, because she was in the, you know, she was working on the background in this game, you know. But this has a crazy story. It goes like all around the world. Oh man, it's like it's hard to sum up because it's a mess. But I think it's a beautiful mess. I gotta admit that I really enjoyed this game when it came out, and they made improvements to it. But people, it's like either you love it or you just really like it. I mean, it's either you really hate this game or you just enjoy it. And I enjoy this game a lot. I haven't played it since back then, and I beat all the campaigns. And I think you should give it a try. It's a fun co-op like in 5. But just give a look online. I mean, you can buy it on PS3s, on PC, of course. And also, they re-released all the Resident Evil games on the PS4. So just get this version. Okay, and then we got the sequel to Resident Evil Revelations. Now this one came out March 2, 2015. And guess who has starred? One of the main stars. Yeah, Barry Burton from the original. Finally back and also starred Claire Redfield and Barry's daughter. What's her name? Mora. Yeah. So this was they did an episodic storytelling. So like one episode came out, another one, another one. I just waited till all of them were released into one package. But this is a good game. Like Resident Evil Revelations, it didn't really leave that much of an impact on me. It was cool playing as Barry, and I think this game is improved from the first Revelations. But it's a fun side game. I mean, there's not much you can say about this. I mean, some of the story elements is cool, like the reveal of the main bad guy in this is cool, I guess. But I don't remember much of this. It's like a cool, game that you can play. And Claire's always cool to play with as, and it's awesome that Barry came back. But yeah, if you like Resident Evil Revelations, you give this a try. It's not super necessary, but definitely give it a try. And it also had more survival horror elements too, like more horror elements compared to Resident Evil 6 and 5. So slowly Capcom was realizing, oh, people like horror. Duh, yeah, Resident Evil was always about that. Next, we're going to talk about Resident Evil 7. Yes, came out January 2017. And this was a big change for the franchise because this game is in first person. Yes, so much different from the other Resident Evils. And I'm so glad that they did this because it revitalized the franchise. Because people really were saying, like, is Resident Evil dead? Nope. Capcom, they finally listened to the fans. Resident Evil Revelations 2 was more horror-focused and it sold well. So it showed that survival horror could sell. Because at that time, horror games were getting more popular online through streamers like Amnesia. I think Five Nights at Freddy was released then. I think so. Yeah, other horror games, Outlast was out. Like, it was really popular, so they showed, like, yeah, Resident Evil can survive in this market, and it sold well. This takes place in a completely different setting than other Resident Evils. It's completely different because it has a brand new cast of characters. It stars Ethan. He's trying to find his wife who went missing. And he gets a video from her, and he goes looking for her in Louisiana. So and he meets a family there, a crazy family that is trying to kill him. Like the dad, he's so funny. He's chasing after him throughout the whole game, similar to Nemesis. And and it takes a lot of cues from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So if you enjoy those type of like that movie, I think you will enjoy that. In the first person, just it doesn't matter because it brings all the elements of the older Resident Evil, like low ammo, puzzles. Like it's really reminiscent of the old games, and I really enjoyed it. The boat, like there's a section with the boat, and like towards the end of the game that it kind of like loses its luster in the end of the game. But it's so many great parts in this. Definitely play it. It should not be missed. One of the better games in the franchise. And also you can play it in VR. I need to play that. That's one of my biggest regrets is not playing in VR yet. Because I know I'll love it. But definitely play that. It's one of the best in the series. Now, we get to one of the best remakes of the franchise of all time. Originally announced in 2015, but finally released in January of 2019. 21 years after the original, we have Resident Evil 2 Remake. Yes. Now, I was so hyped to play this, and like the videos of it, gameplay of it looked so good. This is true survival horror what we've been building up to, finally getting back to the true survival horror, creepy, dark, atmospheric tones of the original games. And this game does it justice so much. This is such a huge surprise because people lost faith in Capcom trying to bring survival horror to the current generation, and they really did it. Now, it still has the camera of Resident Evil 4, so it's still modern, but like it doesn't. I guess it doesn't really. You don't really need the old tank controls, fixed cameras to make survival horror because it proves it right here. A lot of the game is very similar to the original Resident Evil 2, but it is more expanded areas. Like it's a little different, and but it's for more modern taste. And the story is great. The graphics in this, and like most of the Resident Evils, they're always at the forefront of graphics, and this is one of the most beautiful games. It's super gory, and also you can still play as Claire and Leon, like from the original one, and it's different. But one of the biggest differences from the original was Mr. X. Mr. X, it's similar to Nemesis. He chases you around throughout the game, and like he's a bastard in this, man. He's so hard, and one time I had to put the game down because it was too freaking stressful. I'm like, I can't do this. I need to walk away. That's how stressful he was in this game. So there's not much more to say about Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's a great game, one of the best in the franchise. Best game of 2019. Go get it. You won't be disappointed. You won't be disappointment. You're a disappointment, but you won't be disappointed if you play this game. Go get it. Now, we got the last game released that came out this year, 2020. It's another remake made around the same time as Resident Evil 2. We have the remake of Resident Evil 3. Now, this game was a little bit more controversial, a little more decisive in terms of story, game length, because this game can be beaten in only a couple hours, like 4 to 5 hours. But for me, I didn't have that much of a problem with that because the original one, Resident Evil 3, is not that long. It might be a little bit longer than this one. Also, there was cut content in this game, but I still think it's great. It's definitely not as good as Resident Evil 2, the remake or the original one, but I platinumed it. This came at the right time because the coronavirus put me out of work at this time in like early April. In April, May. And I played the crap out of this, and I enjoyed it a lot. But there is like major flaws in this. Like Nemesis, he is very underutilized in this. In this game, he doesn't really walk around like he did in the first one, the original one. It's more scripted events, but he still looks really good in this, and he's still creepy as ever. But what I really liked in this one, the graphics are amazing, some of the best I've ever seen. And also, I like the characterization of Jill and also Carlos. Carlos, he was kind of lame in the original one, but I like their chemistry in this, and it made me really care about the characters even more. The story is basic. You try to get out of Raccoon City like an original one, but it made me really care about this one. And I beat it like 4 or 5 times. And I got everything, all the achievements, trophies, and it's awesome. I would say definitely get it. Play it if you like the original one, if you like Resident Evil. This is more action-packed. They have the dodge mechanic like in the original one, but this one works way better, and if you feel good when you pull it off. So I definitely you should get this. Don't miss this out on this because of the bad, like some of the bad reviews. It's probably cheaper now. Definitely get it. So that's Resident Evil 3 remake. So that's all my Resident Evil games. Basically, the history of Resident Evil. Um, you can't really go wrong when you go play Resident Evil. You like horror, you like action horror. There's like many games in this franchise. Like look it up. Just look up gameplay of it. See if you like it. You can't go wrong with Resident Evil. It's really truly the king of survival horror and horror in general in video games. And I'm looking forward to Resident Evil Village or 8. It's another different take on Resident Evil, more Victorian, like Victorian setting, like in the village, actual village, like with werewolves, like, and I'm interested in the future of the franchise, and they just continue to surprise me. I thought this would have been long dead after like Resident Evil 6, but no, it's still going strong, and I look forward to the future. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. I'm probably going to do my top 10 horror games of all time for Halloween. I'm excited to play that. I mean, to film that. And I got to figure that out. But play Resident Evil. It's so great. And I'll see you on the next dimension. Thanks.